Us. I'm Ilana Weinstein, and I'm reporting from TLA Radio in Los Angeles, California. And I have with me on my right side Dalia Urman.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me, Dalia. And also thank you so much from Israel, Batsheva Green, who is us, my co-host for ועכשיו. Thank you, Batsheva. And Chaverim, we have Dr. Hiלל ניומאן. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Dr. Hiלל before we bring him in and actually ask all those questions we have for him. Dr. Hiלל ניומאן became Consul General of Israel in July 2019, where he serves as the senior representative of State of Israel to the Pacific Southwest. Consul General ניומאן first became familiar with the United States while serving as Deputy Consul General in Boston to the New England region between 2001 and 2005. He has a PhD in Jewish history and served as a professor of Jewish history teaching courses at Bar-Ilan University and Boston University. He has published a book on Jewish sextarians, you can correct me. I always have this word. But during sectarian, during the Hellenistic and Roman period, which is in 31 BC. Dr. Hiלל is here with us to answer your questions that has to do with traveling to Israel, and any questions that we've collected so far for you, Dr. Hiלל, that has to do with us being here in Los Angeles and the current turbulent events that are occurring here in Los Angeles and the United States. So thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate you. And I will have Dalia Urman open this talk with the first question.
Sure, of course. Hi, so I'm Dalia Urman. I'm from the Politically Incorrect show here on TLA Radio, co-hosting with Ilana on her show today. And I have several questions that people wrote into me. And first of all, thank you so much for taking your time and coming and being with us. We really do appreciate it, and the community appreciates it. There's a lot of turbulence, like Ilana said, obviously with growing anti-Semitism that started maybe in Europe and obviously is starting here very strongly. And you wanted me to ask earlier
yes.
Yeah, that is it your opinion that we need to stay quiet or do something as a group collectively and fight back? And I don't mean fight in a fighting way. I mean like we did rallies that were peaceful, writing into Congress, which I encouraged people to do. I wrote in and called the Grove after the incidents that we had last weekend at the Grove. Is it the Israeli Israel government opinion, what should the Jewish people here in the States do?
Shalom. Thank you, Ilana, Dalia, and Batsheva from Israel. Thank you for inviting me. It is my pleasure to be on your program. I wish you lots of success with your new program.
Thank you.
It is always my pleasure to have conversations with you and with your listeners, and I wish all the listeners good health and prosperity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Regarding the question, yes, unfortunately, we've seen a rise of anti-Semitic attacks over the past. Any data that you look at shows that there is a rise in anti-Semitism. It's not just one period or another. It's overall. If you look at the past year or two, you'll see that there's been a rise in anti-Semitism. Many reports have come out, like for instance the ADL and the State Department and other bodies have released reports. Recently, we've seen attacks on Jews on the streets, in the streets of Los Angeles, vandalizing of synagogues, vandalizing of kosher restaurants. Just last week, I was at two solidarity prayers at two synagogues due to the fact that people have been attacked on the street and synagogues vandalized. You ask me what people should do. The worst thing to do is remain silent.
Correct.
We should all get up.
I'm happy to hear that.
Make our voices heard. We should join rallies. against anti-Semitism, against racism. We should write to our elected officials, those who are living in the United States. You are constituents. You can approach your elected officials and talk to them about this issue. Tell them how important it is to you. And we, of course, we support the LAPD and the law enforcement authorities. You know, Israel as a body does not work physically to fight anti-Semitism. As you said, it's not our job. For that, there are law enforcement authorities in the United States. It's their jurisdiction. But we can enforce them, we can support them, we can encourage them. And that's what we do as a state as well. As a state, we've been connected, we've been talking to elected officials, to the mayor, to the LAPD, different authorities in order to make sure that the communities feel safe and secure.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer. I have a different question for you, unrelated to that, and a lot of people are asking this. I have gotten this from several different people. There's a question if it's a myth or a truth that Israeli citizens that have children born in the United States, are they required to have an Israeli passport? And second to that question, second part of it is, some don't, and right now there's a confusion if they can go for the summer to Israel with their parents or not because of the current situation with COVID, etc.
Yeah, this is a known problem. I'll tell you, there's a very clear law in Israel, and the law states that children of Israeli parents, where the children are Israeli actually from birth, they're Israeli, it is obligatory on the parents to register them in the consulates or in the embassy in Washington, to register them and take out Israeli passports. Problem is that the Israeli families don't do it. They just don't do the registration. They forget about it. And then all of a sudden, when they want to travel to Israel, then they remember and they have this problem. Now, this is the law. It's been the law for years. Nothing changed in that aspect. What did change was that about a month ago, the authorities in Israel said that they're enforcing the law, which means that every child of Israeli parents must be registered and must have an Israeli passport. And that put everyone under pressure because the consulates are under tremendous pressure due to now, as things get easier to go to Israel, we are overwhelmed with requests to go to Israel. We have hundreds a day turning to us for requests to go to Israel. We're really drowning under the appeals of the requests. And then all of a sudden we have this extra thing that we have to enforce the law and start registering all the children. So together with other bodies, we appealed this decision and we requested that this not be enforced right now because we've got too much on our hands at the same time. And the decision was made that they do postpone this aspect. So as of now, parents of Israeli children do not have to take out Israeli passports, but they do have to sign a document that they will do it, that they're aware of the obligation of doing this, and that they will do it. And from September, October, it will be implemented and enforced.
Where do they find that?
September, October, they can take the children to Israel even without taking out Israeli passports.
Okay.
But they should be aware that they have to sign a document saying that they are aware of this obligation and that they will do it after September, October.
Where do they sign this? Because I also, part of my question is very hard to find the right documents on your website.
No, it's very clear.
Okay.
From my experience, those who say they don't know and it's not clear, they haven't even looked at our site.
Okay,
So,
I have a question here, yes.
I would recommend everyone who's thinking of traveling to Israel, especially if they don't have Israeli passports, and they should look at our site. You just Google Israeli consulate in LA. It will appear. And then you go into the site, and then there's a special rubric on which says COVID-19 updates. Just press the link of COVID-19 updates. And then you will see all the categories of people who want to go to Israel and what documents they need. If they do not have Israeli passports, then they must submit the request online through our site. with the appropriate documents. And it says exactly which documents must be attached.
Okay.
Those who have Israeli passports do not have to submit a request online.
Will they get a response so they know that they can go with their children after they sign this document?
Yes, they have to submit correctly.
Correct.
And within a certain amount of time, we have so many requests, so that we also look at the dates or how urgent it is, etc. And usually people get responses within 48, 72 hours. They start getting responses. But one should take in consideration that one should give in the request at least 10 working days before the actual date of flight.
Okay,
we need enough time to take care of all the requests that come in. So people should submit their request at least 10 days, working days, before their intended date of flight.
Okay, so part of this question, sorry, I'm going to continue it, is a little bit of a twist, but sometimes not both parents are Israeli, and on your website, I've even read it before, it says if the mother is not Israeli, they have to call the consulate. There could be a question of how they were converted if they're not Jewish, which conversion. There's a lot of issues with that reaching the consulate. They don't really answer the phone. And what can people do now with an additional COVID issues? So there's a lot of things going on.
Yeah, look, once there is a complication about the status of the children, right? For instance, if one parent is Israeli, the other parent is not Israeli, it also depends how the parent became Israeli, whether it's through naturalization or from birth. There are different issues. So it's a complex issue. If one has any doubt, then please turn to our consulate. You can do that. We've introduced now a WhatsApp application.
Okay.
Everyone who looks at the site is, again, just Google our site. You'll see their directions on how to make contact with the consulate. The best today is via WhatsApp.
Okay.
You just send a text message. That's it. Very simple.
Okay.
And people will get back to you. Just be patient. If they don't respond within 24 hours, it's okay. It doesn't mean that they're not going to respond. We have many, many requests.
I understand.
Just be patient, and you'll get a response.
Excellent.
So my advice is that people have any doubts, they should WhatsApp, ask their question, and people will be in contact with them to give them more clear information.
That's fantastic because I've been told here that some people's appointments is 3 and 4 months down the line.
Yes, we have a problem.
Okay.
There is a problem. We have, we have too little amount of hours in order to take care of all the people who are requesting meetings. And all of a sudden, so many people at once want treatment, and it's impossible. We don't have enough hours in the day to put everyone in. So we have packed our schedules.
Yes.
Every minute is taken up. That's part of the problem, that so many people turn at once. But I'd just like to add, the American authorities say automatically that no one gets service for at least three months because of their scheduling. So when we say a week or 2 or 3, then people
Israelis are not used to this. We're so used to, we want to go to Israel, we go on a plane, and we just go, and don't bother with a lot of things. Those people that actually going to take the chance and board the plane and arrive to Israel without the proper paperwork, what's going to happen to them?
No, they shouldn't do that. They shouldn't do that. If they don't have the paperwork, then there is a high probability that they will be sent back.
Wow. Okay.
Not every case. Many cases, yes, they'll just be sent back.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. Batsheva is in Israel right now, and it's... how are you doing, Batsheva?
I'm doing good. I have a question to you, Dr. ניומאן. I think I'm going to ask it in Hebrew. It's going to be easier for me. It's not related to passport. It's actually relating. I mean, we had the honor to have you in our show about a year ago, something, and we touched upon the fact of like Dalia had mentioned, with the anti-Semitism growing up and all that. But I just wanted to hear your opinion about it. How come, Masa Hasbara, like how to say it in English, but it seems like, unfortunately, that on our end, the Israeli, it's not as big and effective as as on the other side, if you know what I'm talking about. What what is there, what else is there to do? Because it seems like what's going on, because unfortunately I see it in people's home with their children that are in their 20s, in their early 20s and all that, that they have a totally different ideas in their head of what's really going on with us in Israel, and what's really happening, and they see a totally different picture, and it's very scary. I'm talking about Jewish kids that grow in the US, and that's what that's the information that they get from. I don't know where they're getting exactly the information from, but it's almost like they're being brainwashed as what's the real reality and what we are really doing here in Israel, especially now with with all the war that was happening here with the Chomat Magen, and with the missile and all that. And what you hear is, oh, poor children, what we did, we burned the children, and we did this and we did that, and there's not, it feels like there's not enough um, things coming up from our side, from the Israeli side, as far as the hasbara and all that, as I mentioned the word, to correct this. It's a big problem. It's a big problem. Beside what that Dalia was asking, what can we do? The rallies and all that. But I think, I don't know. I see that the problem is even bigger than that with all the younger, with all the youth generation. That they're not getting the really true information. They're getting totally false information, and that's what they believe in, and that and it's creating problem within the families even. I just wanted to hear what you have to say about it, and maybe if there is if you think that there is really a solution to that in the immediate future
Yeah.
you're facing
Okay.
with.
Let me say a few things about it. I know that very often people get the impression that Israel's public diplomacy or public relations or hasbara, whatever you want to call it, is lacking. So I just want to say the following things. First of all, there is no lack of information coming out from Israel. In fact, the clips, the video, the information, press releases are, you have an abundant amount of information. Real-time information comes out. It's spread by what's called the Mate Hasbara Leumi, which is the national PR division under the Prime Minister's office. And also IDF releases a lot from the spokesperson of the IDF. And also the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. If one follows the sites of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and even the consulates, you'll get a lot of information of what's going out. You get information in real time. So there's not a lack of information. The problem is how you spread it. Now, the media has a bias against Israel. I mean, it's not a secret. We know that the media has a bias against Israel. Mainstream media, many of them do not give equal footing to Israeli information. We also have a problem, because when you're fighting a terrorist organization, then you'll always have a problem, because we first of all, we base ourselves on credibility. We don't send out lies. We don't give out false propaganda. A terrorist organization does that. The Hamas sent out complete falsifications. Like, for instance, the fact that that Israel evicted Palestinians from their homes, which of course was totally false. Or the fact that Israel intends to change the status quo on the Temple Mount, which is totally false. So they release incitement and hate material, and then it's very difficult then to go and persuade people that it's not true, right? We don't do that. We don't release false perceptions or misguide people or deceive people. So you're always in a disadvantage in that aspect. Now, what is the best way of meeting these challenges? The best way is to have enough soldiers out there. Soldiers, I refer to in inverted commas, people who are active on the social media. Because today the most important aspect is the social media. And that's a matter of how many people are out there spreading the message. And for that we need a lot of soldiers. What I mean by soldiers, I don't mean fighting soldiers, I mean warriors in the internet. people who are prepared to be active on behalf of the state of Israel and spread the correct information over the internet and electronic devices.
Correct.
So
But you see,
that's where people can help.
yeah, but
I
you see
agree.
it a lot with like more like older, older people. And I'm talking about more of how to get to those, the younger one in their early 20s and all that, that they have the total, because people, our age or even a little bit younger than that, a little bit younger than us, or even in their 30s and all that, they some of us lived in Israel, some of us serve in the army and all that, so we have the knowledge, we have the information. But all those younger, the student and all that, they have no idea, they have no, and they getting, a completely, like you said, they getting it also through the media and everything, but they don't get the information that you're talking about, like the soldier that that you're referring to and all that. They're not getting to this generation, to this
So how do we reach? Okay, so how do we reach the young generation? I would say first of all, it's a matter of education at home, the family environment. Secondly, it's a matter of to which sites are they connected, and that's also a matter of education. If they grow up in a home which is strongly supportive of Israel and has the right values and the right ideals, then also they'll be connected to the right sources. We've got a big problem of Jewish education, which is so costly that many people don't send their children to Jewish education. So we have a problem in the general society, but especially amongst the Israeli families, we would expect that the children grow up in an environment which is pro-Israel. They understand the issues, they understand the challenges which face Israel, and they if you just connect them to the right sites, the pro-Israel sites, and not, God forbid, the opposite sites. That's a matter of education from the home, from the environment, from youth organizations. Where do they grow up and what education do they get?
Thank you. Yes, I agree with you on that. Sorry to cut you off. I remembered another question, and I know we have a short time with you. A lot of people that are Israelis, I don't know if a lot, but some have come in through the border through Mexico or through Canada and are not legal here and are afraid to come to the consulate and sign themselves up. How do you suggest they go about it?
Well, my advice is to everybody not to be illegal.
I agree. I'm just asking the question.
I know. I'm just saying that that's our first advice. Of course, people should make sure that their status is not illegal. Secondly, look, people can come and register. If they're Israeli citizens, they can come and register in the consulate. That's not illegal or illegal. That's just to be registered. That we know that you exist. Right?
Okay.
But we can't promise them anything from the aspect of services, American authority services, and things like that, because if they're illegal, then it's their business with the American authorities. We represent Israel. We don't represent the American authorities in any way. So we can't legalize them. We can't, regularize their status or anything. We have the address for those who need services from Israel.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. Hiלל. I do want to mention something that, and the question that Batsheva asked, how can we, I'm going to add to that question, how can we, create an image in Los Angeles, revive our image as Jewish people, the good people in this town, what can we do? Yes, social media, we will inflate social media with good information, positive information about Israel, and all of the above. But here physically, do you have any suggestion for us when we're out there in a restaurant and we're actually facing, face to face an anti-Semitic act? What do we do besides calling 911?
If you're facing a physical attack of some kind, like we saw, for instance, in the sushi restaurant,
yes,
where Jews were attacked physically, then my advice is not to get involved and to call the police.
Correct.
That's definitely, I'm not advising anyone to go into a physical brawl or dispute of any kind. At the same time, if it's not physical and you're not being attacked physically, then my word to everyone is to stand strong to your values, stand strong to what you believe. Don't let biased information or a deceitful propaganda influence you in any way. You should stand strong to your values. There are many, our enemies out there attack us not only physically, but also on the moral level, on the legitimacy level. And they spread lies and deceitful information. So we should know the facts, we should learn the facts, and stand strong in support of Israel, in support of our values, in support of the Jewish people. They have full rights, equal rights as any other citizen, not to be attacked. And we can stand proudly and support those ideals and values. Again, I'm not saying don't go into any physical conflict of any kind. If there's a physical attack, you should call 911, call the police.
Okay.
Going back, sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Going back to the questions about the children going to Israel, some of the parents have said that the reason that they don't register them or haven't in the past was they were worried about when they turned 17, 18 that they need to go to the army. What is your advice to that? I mean, I know you give certificates out that they don't have to if they live here, but coming from you, it might help for other people to hear it and not from me.
Yeah, sure. No, it's very important that parents of children who are minors who become of age, which means, let's say, from 15, 16, they should regularize their status with the IDF. That doesn't mean that they're drafted into the IDF. It means that they get a postponement and a deferment of their service in the IDF. But it's very important that the status is regularized, so that if they land in Israel, they're not drafted in. If they don't regularize their status, then they might be drafted in. So it's very important that people, especially 16, 17, especially before the age of 19, anyone below the age of 19, let's say above 15, should regularize their status as soon as possible. They have to, it's a matter of submitting documents. And again, they can look at our site, see the documents that are needed, and just send them in. After 19, it becomes much more complicated. Because it goes to a body called Meitav, and this body takes a long time. It can take months to regularize the status. So anyone who just wants to get over this problem, just look at our site, look at the issue of IDF regularizing of status, submit the documents, and usually it's automatic. You get an automatic postponement, deferment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hillel. Batsheva, do you have any more questions for Dr. ניומאן?
No.
So we will close it with one last question, Dr. Hillel. And this is something of a personal opinion of yours that I would like to know. How do you feel about that? So given the conditions, current conditions, do you suggest or advise, us as Jews, to maybe take a break from our Jewishness, take off the kippah, hide our talit, and perhaps close our windows when we light our Shabbos candles. Do you think that's a good idea?
Well, I think that everyone must make that decision for themselves. I can say that I do wear a kippah and I don't intend to take it off. I think that there is the right of every individual to walk proudly with their symbols and their what they represent. Doesn't matter if they're Jewish, Christian, or Muslim, but everyone must make that decision for themselves. I can't, guarantee the safety and security of everybody, so I'm just saying everyone must make that decision for themselves. But what is important is that everyone understands that Israel will support the Jewish community and the diaspora. Israel will stand and support their needs. We have been engaging with the authorities, with the LAPD, with everyone that is relevant, to make sure that the communities feel safe and secure. That is our obligation. It's been a long time now. Israel has moved from a mode of thought of being supported by the diaspora to supporting the diaspora. And Israel today supports the diaspora in many ways, even financially. All the Masa programs that bring youngsters to Israel, a third of the budget is paid by Israel. Taglit, birthright, is paid partly by Israel. So Israel is a partner also in education and other things. Israel cares for the diaspora and sees the Jewish community as its diaspora.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think I'm much clearer about a lot of things. I'm sure that we all are. And appreciate your time, Dr. ניומאן. Thank you. Stay safe. God bless you. And we'll see you soon again, God willingly, in Israel.
Thank you, Ilana, Dalia, Batsheva. I wish you success with your program.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hillel. And this is Ilana Weinstein from Kan ועכשיו with Dr. Hillel ניומאן, Batsheva Green, and Dalia Urman. Thank you for joining, everyone. And if you have questions, just follow instructions in this broadcast, and you'll get there, you'll get your answers, and we'll see you in Israel. All the best.